I've been in the industry for 13 years. It's just changed drastically. And the pandemic has been one of the greatest things that's ever happened to our industry. I know pandemic's terrible. Yes, we all agree to that. But it has transitioned us to be real and virtual. And when you do that, then you don't need a suit. You don't need all of that stuff.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today, we're back in the studio with yet another amazing guest. We got Stoy Hall in the house. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Very cool. Stoy is the founder of Black Mammoth, and we're going to talk all things finance, business, entrepreneurship, speaking, podcasting, all the stuff that you're up to. So really excited to dive into it all today.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Very cool. So it sounds like we've both been traveling a lot lately.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were in Orlando?
Yes, Orlando. Have you ever been to Disney World and then not done Disney World? Because that's exactly what I was there for.
Yeah, like everyone's there with their Mickey ears on,
Doing
and you're
all that
like,
stuff.
I got a suit on and I got to go talk to people.
Yeah, except for no suit.
Oh, no suit.
This
Oh.
is my gear.
Okay.
I've transitioned from a three-piece to, this is usually my podcast persona.
Sure.
And I'm like, why doesn't that just be me? So I've transitioned.
That's really fun. I think especially people in finance and it's in I would say laggard industries, people that kind of step out, I feel like get a lot of crap from people. Have you gotten that from other people that are like, where's your suit? Where's your Maserati? Where's the, you got to keep this look of I'm doing well because my clients are doing well, or I have to wear a suit because it's the expectation. What's been your experience with that?
Over the course, I've been in the industry for 13 years. It's just changed drastically. And the pandemic has been one of the greatest things that's ever happened to our industry. I know pandemic's terrible. Yes, we all agree to that. But it has transitioned us to be real and virtual. And when you do that, then you don't need a suit. You don't need all of that stuff. Now, do you still have to play the game if you go into banks or you go into some high rollers? Yeah, you got to put the suit on. But ultimately, people just want everyone to be comfortable. And we've found in our industry that the mindset when someone shows up in a suit automatically puts the client in a defensive mode and not wanting to open up. And ultimately money and all of that comes around emotions. And so if you're not comfortable, then what are we doing here?
Sure. When I was just, without giving too much away, I was on a super secret trip last week, which I can't disclose publicly what I was doing, but
Hey, Area 51 stuff, I get it.
yeah, I was talking to aliens and stuff. Yeah, the aliens told me, though, it was a personal branding conversation with some really high-level entrepreneurs, and we were all talking about personal branding. And for me, whenever I introduce myself, I always say I'm Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and it's my signature thing. It's interesting because then people remember that, but then it's also how you carry yourself, how you speak, what you wear. And sometimes if people want to melt into the wallpaper, they will. You won't remember who they are. But if they stand out, sometimes people go a little too far. So you have to reel it back. There was one gal that her last name was an animal. And that alone was memorable enough. But she kept going. She would say other things that try to make herself more memorable. I'm like,
you're good.
You're good. I will never forget you. Quit trying to, hammer it home, that type of thing. So I think it's interesting that way. So before we get super into all the stuff you're doing now, I think it would benefit the audience to hear a little bit about your backstory and tell me where you grew up and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Born and raised from Omaha, Nebraska. Came from a family that my father really wasn't around and my mom worked 12-hour shifts. And so I was raised by my grandparents mostly. And while I was growing up, I started to understand the difference in money, right? Back then I didn't know what the hell that meant, but there's a lower and a lower, middle, and high class. Didn't really know what that meant because I was always provided basically what I wanted. If I wanted a gift, my mom would do it. And then I started to realize she was doing that at the detriment of her own success and her own wealth, which in turn hurt family and whatnot. And my specific, and I always ask my clients this one question when we first start, is what's your first money memory? And my first money memory was when I was about 8 years old. I had gotten money, and don't ask me how I actually got the money. That's not where my memory lies. But I went to McDonald's to buy my mom an ice cream cone, right? And on the way out, my friend scared me, and I crushed it. And to this day, I'll get emotional about it because it wasn't about the ice cream cone, duh. It was about me being able to finally provide back to my mother who's been working 12-hour shifts since I can remember. And it was the fact that I didn't have any more money. That was it. And that's when I first understood that your emotions are tied to money, and money is tied to your emotions, and there's no way around it. And it's just how you deal with those going forward. So being born and raised in Omaha, the only way I thought out was sports, right? Actually, baseball was my first love.
Okay.
But I ended up being better at football. So you went that route, and I knew that like I had to use that to get out. So ended up at Drake University.
What position do you play?
In high school, I was a fullback in D-line.
Okay.
Came into Drake as a fullback, and then they got a brand new coach and went 5 wide. And at 245-pound fullback, shouldn't be running fly routes and corner routes.
You can truck those little DBs.
Oh, Lord.
You got 5 yards to really just mess somebody.
Yeah. So got down to about 230, 225, still played that position, but then transferred over to linebacker, which is where I probably should have been my entire life.
Did you go on scholarship or?
At Drake, they don't have like athletic scholarships. They have academic to fill in some gaps, but still I still had student loans. Like let's be real about it. There's no full ride.
Sure.
But I knew I wanted to go somewhere to get education too, knowing that, hey, I'm a couple inches too short, a few tenths too slow, right? Like I know pro is probably not going to be real.
Yep.
So I knew I wanted to get an education. Came to Drake, worked at the Boys and Girls Club for about 4.5 years. My title ended up being, and this is great, I love titles, right? Professional Teen Development Officer. Yeah.
A PTO?
Yeah, right?
You're a parent teacher organization.
Right. Guess what I did?
Babysat kids.
Teenagers, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from like 12 up to 18. Yeah. Like
and these are probably kids with attitudes and I don't want to be here and
yep.
Shut up, Mr. Not even Mr. Hall. I'd be like, hey, you. Like it's not even like there's no respectful
exactly. But I was an officer, so it's fine, right?
Sure. But did they give you a whistle at least? Hey.
But what I learned was those kids were very much how I was raised, right? And this illusion of money and this negative mindset that people have and relationship they have towards money is what drives all of that. And it all comes back down to financial education. So I knew going through school, like, hey, yeah, that's what we want to do. And I learned really fast that I didn't want to do accounting. My first accounting exam, I got a 40. It looked as blank as this white table right now.
Oh, like 40 out of 100?
40%.
Nice.
Yep.
That's like an E minus.
Yeah. Well, have you ever showed up to exam and they give you a white piece of paper and say, build a balance sheet, income statement, and do it from scratch? With your name, a name spot's not even on there. You have to create it all based upon the information that was on the...
That's kind of, I mean, you would use Excel in today's age.
In a heartbeat, right?
Using a manual. What is this, manual. Like the 1800s?
That's what it felt like.
We have to balance the balance sheet of a cigar shop in this saloon in this small town in Wisconsin. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. So my brain went blank. There was no way that was going to happen. So I knew I didn't want to go do accounting. And so I ended up with a degree in finance, minored in business law and insurance. So well-rounded overall. And then I went into the insurance game when I graduated. A few years after that, was managing partner, running my own team. Left there because they were too life insurance focused. I started to understand that financial planning is all encompassing, and the financial plan and where people are in their lives dictate what the next move is. Yeah. Does it mean insurance? Yes. Does it mean investments? Cool. Does it mean starting a business? It doesn't. Everyone is different in that perspective, so you have to follow that plan. And then met guys out of that company who are in Houston. Their business is now Centric. Helped them build that. And then in 2020, launched Black Mammoth because I wanted to change the way this financial industry is ran. And I deem us a modern family office. And for those that don't know what a family office is, all of your super ultra wealthy people in the world have a private family office. And what all that is a team of professionals, attorneys, obviously CPAs, investment people, you name it. Come together and do all the things on the back end of your life, right? You need a vehicle, they find the lending, get the car done, right? You need to travel, it's already set up. It's just everyone doing everything on the back end for you so you can live your life the way you want to with your family and however you make money the best, right? And as business owners, that's important. We wear a lot of hats, like too many. And ultimately, that's what we're here for, is to take some of that pressure off so you can focus on at least a couple items, not 100.
Sure. Well, and even in current age, I think of like, usually you plan your own vacations or a business trip, but you start to build out a team, you might hand that off to like an assistant or it's like, hey, can you buy the flights, get the cheapest hotel, like make sure I'm there and like blah, 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 blah. And then like, as you continue to grow, it's like, I'm not doing like, that's like not subservient work, but that's like
That's below me.
below me. I'm not doing it. Coming from the owner operator that also is the janitor of my own business. So yeah, I can say those things. I clean the toilets, I sweep the floor. But I think it's interesting, like you said, offloading some of that, because in your experience, as people become higher net worth, higher wealth individuals, it complicates everything, right? In terms of the legalities, what asset classes should I be investing in? Where should I be parking my money to get a good return? Explain to me a little bit about the challenges that people have as they go up in net worth. Because even maybe putting like a benchmark, like once you make $1 million a year, these are the challenges. When it's 10 million, and then like beyond that, like just to kind of give people an idea. Because I think a lot of people think the more money I make, the easier my life will be. And I think it'd be good to demystify that a little bit from the financial planning side.
Yeah, and I'll actually attack it from a different perspective. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The complexities are there. They just adapt and they're changing, right? So for a business owner that's startup, maybe makes like $100,000, a lot of your complexities are all on you. You have to learn how to balance the books. You maybe do your own taxes or don't do your own taxes. You are doing all of the cleaning and the upkeep and figuring out sales and marketing, and that's all on you, right? Which isn't very complex in terms of hiring other people and other things to do, but it's super complex to you because there's no schooling, there's nothing that can train you to be a solo business owner. There's nothing out there, right? Just like being a parent. There's no books on that. Like there's actual books, people buy them, but let's be real. You have a child, those things go out the window. So
there should really be a formalized guide for the amount of people.
There really should be.
There should be a college course, something.
Please help me.
An accreditation. I'm an accredited parent.
Right. I can now have a child. We're good to go. I agree to that 100%. So it's not necessarily a net worth thing, right? I believe our industry usually uses net worth and assets as a measuring stick, and it's not accurate. It comes down to the level of income, right? And that's what it does. Because if I don't have a lot of income, I can't do any investments, let alone real estate, foreign currencies, any bond stuff. I can't do that because I don't have it, right? I can't do all the insurances that I need to do because I don't have the money. So it comes down to income increase. As your income increases, then your complexities happen, right? Who do I hire to help delegate to what? Save myself time, right? Because time is our true value. And so when you start at 100, usually you're doing everything yourself. And every 100,000 after that, you can start to replace yourself in that perspective. For our services, we can work with anyone, but really when it comes to the full-fledged family office, you got to gross about 300,000 for it to make a good investment for you.
Sure.
Obviously, we have other tiers underneath that, but for the full-fledged thing, you got to be doing around that. And then it just comes down to, what do you want to do? Some people are simple, right? They like to just invest in stocks, bonds, do simple things, and just,
if I can just get 5%, I'm
good.
happy. Yeah.
And you're like, awesome. Like,
sure.
I can help you, but it's going to be minimal because once you set it, it's kind of forget it type thing. But for the others, then it's all figuring out, what does that look like? Something that, again, back to the pandemic and helping our business or our industry, is everything's more global now, right? There's a lot more people doing investments who live in Iowa that are doing investments around the country than ever before. And that opportunity brings our mindset to a different perspective. In the Midwest, we love to do everything ourselves. We love banks, and we love to be ultra conservative in general, right?
Yep.
That's not how you build wealth. The coasts, all the richest people in the world, they don't do that. That's not how they operate. And so being able to open up and get exposure to different ideas and concepts is ultimately what it's about.
Sure. Well, did you see the Ramit Sethi's show on Netflix that he had? It's I Will Teach You to Be Rich, the show. I read his book, and
Did you?
His show was interesting because he just seeing people play out these personas in real life. Like there was the gal was the divorcee that just had like $1 million or like was it $30,000 a month in alimony from her husband. Her daughter's like 17. I'm like, first off, I'm like, that's in
general.
We're not even gonna go down that route of like how crazy that is. But she was just like she had a guy that was investing, and she was like, it was one of those like, oh, he's getting me my 5%, like I'm fine, So it's interesting. What would you argue is like the benefit of having in your title as a financial or advisor?
Financial planner.
Financial planner. What would be your argument for having someone like yourself compared to being like self-directed or trying to better understand the different asset classes and do it themselves.
Yeah, ultimately you can do it yourself. Like, don't get me wrong. And picking investments to me is just a tool. Investments is a tool. It is not a way of life. But the two questions that we can answer that help you as an individual or business owner or whatever is, am I good? Meaning, am I good in life? Are we good to do this? Am I protected? Just in general, living life like I'm good. Like no matter what, I'm good. The other is, do you have my back? Those are the two questions that we can answer and already have for you that you're not going to be able to do yourself because you don't know what you don't know. You can't see what you can't see type of thing, right? And that's what we can do. We provide, hey, we can tell you you're good or you're not right now. We need to fix it. And then back end of, we got your back. Things happen in life all the time, and you're never going to be prepared for them all. We're able to somewhat be prepared for it, but we have the knowledge, the skill set, and the resources for when that happens. We can protect you. We have your back. We're going to get it answered and get you dealt with. Those are two things you can't do on your own. And the most successful people in the world, guess what they have? A team. So if you want to be successful, you got to have a team. Most of us do have some sort of a team, right? We have family. We have our religious beliefs, some of us. We have, those types of people. That's part of your team. But the other stuff in your team is vitally important as well.
Sure. No, I love it. We'll put a pin in this for a second. We're going to backtrack a little bit. I liked hearing kind of your come up story, which is interesting, like the football and that type of thing. When you were working for another firm, and you said 2020 is when you made the jump to do your own firm full time. What was the one of the main reasons you decided to go off on your own, and what is something that you took from those experiences that you're actively changing with your own practice, like seeing things that are in the industry that you want to change? You mentioned like the clothing thing was one, but maybe expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, the reason for the jump was I went from, in our industry, typically you try to either grow by assets, right? We call it AUM, just stupid. But investable assets, meaning I'm trying to get all of your assets.
Assets under management, right?
Assets under management. You nailed it. Winner. Either like that by having a bunch of advisors, and those advisors have 1,000 clients. It's one model. I didn't like that. I wanted that family approach. I wanted to be one-on-one. I want to know everything in your life so I can help you, like honestly help you, not just focus on your investments. Because again, I don't care if your advisor guarantees, which they can't because compliance will eat them alive, or just says, I can get you a return. If you have $0 able to be put into that, it's still zero.
Sure.
Right? So we have to do everything on the front end to be able to invest. So that's why an investment's a tool. So I wanted to change what things were going on. And then I started researching the family office thing and how the ultra wealthy are becoming more ultra wealthy. And I realized that we can scale that down to everyday people. We just have to change how they approach it and their mindset on it. And that comes all down to education, but ultimately it comes down to the psychology and how our emotions are derived and involved with money. And so I wanted to create a firm like, hey, we're going to care more about you as a person than we ever do about the money. That's a byproduct for you living a wealthy life. And my definition of true wealth is happiness, ability to give back to others, and live life on your own terms, right? Now everyone's like, whoa, that takes money. Yeah, money's a tool though. It is not the driving factor. It is not what we care about. It's about you. And so having that mindset and that change in a firm is drastically different within our whole industry.
Sure. No, I love it. And it's interesting because you can use, like you said, money as an accelerant to do other things you want to do. I was talking with a guy last week that he in the last year he went from 16 employees. He just hired 47 new people in the last 12 months, which is insane to just do that. But they were making so much profit from their business that he was getting kind of fat and happy. Yeah. And he's like, to grow, I know I need to invest in people, human capital, to get this new business off the ground, like a new branch of it. So he sat down with his wife and he's like, hey, like, I'm taking like a very low salary this year. I mean, they're going to be fine. They're multimillionaires, but he's like, we're going to have to like kind of scrape this next year to get to the point where it'll be like 10x next year. Like that, and that's the hope, right?
Right.
But they're investing in the business, not necessarily like an asset class, even though a business is an asset class. But it's kind of an interesting like thought, right? It's like the ebbs and flows of energy, and like we're going to put everything we have into this and hopefully it pays off, that type of thing. So it's kind of interesting. Going back to when you're first starting the business, you mentioned 2020 you left. Mm-hmm. Where are you guys at now in terms of scale? Is it just you in the firm? What is the team dynamic now?
Yeah. So when we first transitioned, I had a business partner who was a CPA who that's a different off topic. We can go to your bar and have a couple drinks.
Sure, yeah, I got a little.
I love that.
You like the bourbon out there?
Oh God, yeah.
What time is it? We can. It's Friday.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
We can have one after. You should have told me how to make some old fashions before we started up. So.
We can always pause and come back. Right?
We could.
So ultimately, I had about 4 staff. Over time, due to some unforeseen reasons, they ended up leaving, and that's kind of what triggered me to break up the partnership. Just going in the opposite wrong direction. And so it was like about a year ago, actually, that we transitioned out of that, went virtual, and just started running everything just solo. But I say that, but I have, consultants and independent contractors that do a lot of work and help me too. And that's kind of where we're at today, right? I've got probably 4 or 5 independent contractors that are part of the team still, regardless of however you want to call them. And we just all have our own lanes. I've got an accountant. I've got bookkeeping. Obviously, I've got the marketing side. I've got attorneys. Like, it's creating that family office, which traditionally is all in-house. And I've kind of created with just vetting out some badass people on the outside and then doing that work that way.
Sure. No, I love hearing it. Yeah, and I'm also in the process. This year, I'm hiring my first employee. So it's been like a process to get figured out, like, everyone I've talked to has different opinions on it. What's been your, like, now that you've been on both sides of having like full-time, but also like contractor, what would you suggest for myself? So little backstory, I'm bringing in another content creator to shoot and edit more because I'm at the cap. Like I mentioned, I'm slammed with shoots this like week or 2 weeks. The pros of having like freelance contractors that they're not a part of my team is they require a higher day rate to edit or shoot, but they're on call whenever, The other opposite side would be having a full-time person. You have a set salary. It's like you've got to pay them every month. What would be your suggestion for your first hire when you're starting to grow to 2 or more people?
Yeah, obviously, my industry loves this word. It depends.
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe.
Right. Maybe. That's just because it's drilled into us compliance. But I would say depending on your situation. But for you, it makes sense to have that in-house because you can, lack a better word, you can control them more.
Sure.
Right? With an independent contractor, you can't tell them when to show up. You can't tell them when to do those things because that means they're an employee. And then, the whole DHS comes into play and says you need to pay them as an employee, which means
give us tax money.
Yeah, there you go. So, but like for you in your situation, it does make sense to hire someone. Now, I will always say this to everybody. Being a business owner sucks and people suck, okay? And I mean that in the most blunt and honest way, but also it's super fulfilling. So don't get me wrong. However, with that meaning, you got to play off those people, right? You have to build the culture and have a relationship with them that goes above and beyond just like clock in and clock out. And that was the biggest difference between my partner and I is like he cared more about the money and them as a tool than them as like a human and the responsibility of like us to provide more than just $1 to them.
Sure. Which is kind of funny because if you looked at them more as people, they would make you more money in turn by treating them better. They stick around longer, which costs less money to hire people and put out ads for people don't realize that if you do both, you will get the other. Like if you do one, you will get the other and vice versa. Or if all you care about is your people and you're like losing money and you're like, but I don't want to hurt their feelings or they're like, they haven't shown up to work for the last 10 days, but I don't want to fire them because they're not. It's like you have to draw the line, all that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, you do. You have to be, but if everyone's on the same page to begin with, you usually don't run into those issues, right?
Sure.
But yeah, as a business owner, you have to be quick to cut, but also quick to care at the same time. And I know that's like an oxymoron type of thing, but you have to because we're all humans ultimately.
Right.
It's not a robot. I can't like just adjust what it's supposed to do or kick it and it'll be fine. Like you have to adjust with them and their life is crazy. Your life is crazy.
Well, and even in my case, like when I talk to clients, there'll be times that I'm so bad with names, dude. I like so bad.
Awful.
So
already forgot your name.
Bad. Exactly. Like I can't remember my own name. Right. I have to say it back to myself in the mirror every morning. But I think going, like you said, taking those little things that go above and beyond, like one of my clients, her mother was in the hospital when I was on a shoot and I could tell she was super distracted with that. The next time I saw her, I brought it up right away. I'm like, how's your mom doing? Like those things go above and beyond. It doesn't make me more money. It probably does because I have more tie with her personally, but that's not why I'm doing it. Like then if I know, oh, she's doing well, now I know that that's not going to like keep her from reading lines better or the interview's going to suck. Like I can ebb and flow based on that, or I can kind of give her some grace if she's screwing up and it's like, oh, do better. It's like, she's going through some stuff. Like we'll give her a break, Yeah. I think that helps though. Cause it's like you learn and evolve as time goes on with your people skills and that moves into it. I had a meeting with a guy yesterday that owns an agency, and he was talking about this, how a lot of his client or his employees want to go full-time remote. What is your opinion on having more of a virtual first business and keeping good culture or feeling like a part of something? Because a lot of times if you're just in your home working, you don't feel a part of the team. It's more of a transactional clock in, clock out thing. How would you say that you view that with like having an in-person team or having people nearby that could meet in person?
Yeah, I now that we've gone through all of this stuff, hybrid approaches is where I believe I would land, right? One, because if you had a full office, then you have overhead and all that other stuff. That's not very cool. But you're right. The full virtual, you just start to miss the interactions with people. You start to miss that part. Now, how to balance that? Like for us with our team, we use Slack all the time. So we're always messaging, we're always calling, we're always video chatting. So you get to fill in some of that gap, but ultimately you miss the human connection, right? And I believe we're all starting to feel that, 4 years removed from the old COVID thingy bob, we're all starting to feel like we want to get back to interacting with the people we want to interact with, not just everyone like they used to do, right? It's now being very specific. And I think all business owners should really think about the hybrid model. But when you're thinking of that, I will tell everyone this. Tell them and have your culture be, if you get your work done, you're good to go. Don't make them sit there 9 to 5 because they're not going to be as productive. People just want to be able to work when they want to work. And when they own that, they're way more efficient and way more productive than you could ever imagine. That's why in Europe they did with the 4-day work week, right? Which hopefully comes here, but it's America. Good luck. But it allowed people to be super efficient and focused and not feel so stressed because they're sitting there 9 to 5, right? Think about it. If I had 4 hours of work stuff to do in an 8-hour shift, I'm not getting it done in the first 4 if I have to be there.
Sure.
But if I don't, then I just knock out the 4 and move on and go do laundry or something, right?
Sure.
But I think the hybrid is the route.
No, I totally agree with that. I think it's where most people are going, and it obviously depends on the business. Some, like, if you're a factory worker, you can't really zoom in. Yeah. Let me just
zoom in to move
push
the widget.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm sure they'll have software to do
I'm
it
sure.
at some point, but it's interesting. Like, navigating that is really interesting. We're talking about like money mindset and all these things. What would you say has been your money mindset shift throughout your life when you come from your background to where you are now? How has it evolved for you and how you view money?
Yeah. I used to view money as the way to get like items and things like that. And that used to be just like, that's more important, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. It shifted to use those things for experiences, right? Our experiences are what we die with. Those are the things that our memory remembers. We don't remember buying those nice shoes, those nice cars. Like those aren't the memories. Experiences matter more than mere materialistic things. That's been the most aggressive shift in my mindset is I am here not to save and have millions, $100 million when I die. I'm trying to create as much memories as possible. And I believe our generation's like the leader of that because we're not focused on retiring at 65, 67, or 70. We're living a quasi-retirement life now because we are trying to have those experiences when we're 35, 40, 50, 60 years old and not just working until we get to 65, 70. And if you look at the stats, most people who have lived that long then retire die within like 8 to 10 years. Like you lived your entire life
their
to try to do
purpose was their job.
Correct.
Which I think is it speaks to a lot of it. Like, we hate this job. I don't want to do this. Like, I can't wait till I retire. And then you quit and you're like, well, now what?
Now what?
Bye.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop taking my medications and stop eating.
Well, I mean, yeah, and then they don't have any hobbies. They don't have anything. They don't have any experiences to track back on. And your health is worse, right?
Yeah.
You're not able to do all the physical things you could when you were, a wee lad.
Sure.
It's just not there. And so that's been my biggest mindset change.
Sure. And I'd love to hear your opinions on generational wealth. Because I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Like, I'm working my face off to build generational wealth for my kids and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, everyone I talk to, they're like, well, I had such a hard upbringing. I just don't want that for my kids. I'm like, yeah, but like your upbringing, however hard it was, made you the person you are today. Right. Not to say like you grew up in the slums, so you better like move your kids into a cardboard box in the ghetto and you got to, not to say that, but it's like, what would you say is your opinion on kind of the leaving generational wealth for your kids or having that be your objective with investing or wealth creation is just to like dump a bunch of money on your kids and hopefully they're better off for it.
Yeah, we're going to see that. We're seeing that now-ish, but you might have heard it, this wealth wave from all the baby boomers dying and handing it down. I believe a lot of that money is going to go into trusts, and that's where the generational wealth should go.
You hope it's in trusts anyway. Not,
yeah,
hey, 6-year-old son of mine, here's $100 million. Go buy some Legos.
Good luck. But that's what usually happens with inheritance and everything. It's not set up in a trust, or it doesn't have to be a trust, but it's set up in a trust that has parameters around how it's used and how to access it. Right? Like ultimately, I have a couple clients that we've set up trust and like their children were like 20 at the time. And they were only allowed certain income at certain levels. Or if they got married, that would be paid for. Right?
Oh, okay.
Or if they got a full-time job and worked 5 years, their student loans would be paid off. Right? They had to work for things in order to have that wealth there, but it wasn't there to make them, trust fund babies. It was there to support them in life. And when things got really, really tough or they had to provide it, yes, it's there to catch them because that helps their mental health and hopefully reduces the whole suicide thing. But ultimately, that's how I believe generational wealth should be. And by the way, when we talk about generational wealth, it's not about money per se. There's assets, there's hand-me-downs. All of that comes into play. I believe every family should set up a generational wealth plan, legacy plan, regardless of how much money you have and how much assets you have, because it will just start to trickle down. And then at some point, there is an actual family wealth that maybe doesn't necessarily give you money or my kids money, right? But what if it does support nonprofits? What if it does support the hunger or, name something? That is where it starts to allude to, and not just for tax purposes like Bill Gates and them do, but for actual purposes.
Sure. Well, yeah, and you could set up like a foundation that does some of those things. I know my financial coach and I and my wife, we all sat down and talked about this stuff when we read our will. It's like, what do we want this to be? And I told my executors of our will, hey, if we die at the same time, like you're up, like here's what, and they were like, their eyes got wide when I told them like the speculations of how things would go. Like we have things in our will of like, certain money would be allocated, but based on the two trustees or the executors, whatever term you want to use, if the kids are doing drugs, if they are by definition not in good character standing, they're acting up, they don't get anything. Because it'd be the same way if we were still alive. If my kids were like flunking out of college and they want me to keep paying for college, like no, you're not doing your end of the bargain. Or if you're addicted to crack, I'm not going to fund your crack addiction. Like it'd be exactly if I was alive. So I think that's interesting to kind of like talk through because so many people have this thought of it. Like I remember watching an interview with Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. Yeah. And he was talking about this, how his kids all went to, prep school. All their kids are trust funds. They're just skating. And his son asked him like, Dad, where's my trust fund? And he like laughed at him. He's like, you're not getting anything. And he's like, but Dad, we're loaded. He's like, no, son, I'm loaded. You're just my kid. Like you will get nothing once, your college is paid for and you're cut off. Like you will not get anything. The money's going into trust. It won't be touched. And there's speculations on it. And then it like completely changed his son's like outlook. So then he ended up like, well, crap, I got to like figure this out on my own. So like did really well in school. And now he's like a senior engineer for Tesla, like does all their like development for that. So it's like he built his own life, which I think is helpful because some people just think they can skate, but they,
Yeah. But I also think to what you were talking about with your setup is that I don't think people understand that they can control after they die, right? We all think we die and then whatever, or the executor or trustee. No, they legally have to. Right? This is all legal stuff. And if they break it, there's some consequences, a lot of them for them. So you can set all of this up the way you want it, right? And if you need to change it while you're still alive, you can, right? Like, so set these things up the way you believe and you want it, not just because, oh, I'm dead, I don't care. You do care. You just say that because it's an easy way of, skating around, not setting something up.
Sure. If someone's listening to this and they haven't set up a will and they're still like, make a will. There's inexpensive ways to do it out there. I have a way that I did, but I'm not going to plug them because they didn't pay for sponsorship on the podcast. I should probably reach out to them and do a special episode on that. But tying it back also, you mentioned like COVID's huge effect on your business. Talk me through how that, it was like a silver lining for you because most people I've had on the show that are business owners, we can talk and complain all about how COVID screwed our lives up. But how did you take it as like a glass half full opportunity to like really figure out why you're in this business? Explain to me how you like went through that process.
Yeah. It was a turn of time where, and I usually did a lot of virtual anyway. So like from a meetings perspective, it didn't really adjust anything. But what it did is it changed people's thinking and their mindset around their own lives. They wanted to take control. They weren't just living to live. And I think that's what COVID did. It made us all think down deep inside when we were locked up forever to be like, okay, I need to do things correctly the way I want to live, and I've been doing it wrong. Well, by doing so, now people want advice. They want help, right? We did go a stretch like in 2020 and then 2021 where they didn't want any help, and then they started buying all the meme stocks. They've learned that
GameStop to the moon.
Right. They've learned since then that they're the one who's holding the bag, and the institutions made money off of it.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see even more another run of like, well, I wasn't good at that, so can you help me? It allowed people to start to get control of that, which allowed, I'm not stuck with just my clientele base in Iowa. Like people in California and Florida, all over the place are looking to be with the people they want to be with, who align with their values, who they can trust and have some sort of close background to them. Before in our industry and before what we did, that wasn't the case. It was who's your person around the corner, who's the person at the bank, who's the person that your parents worked with.
Yep.
And that's dying very, very quickly because we have social media, we have the internet, and I can, research someone for months, maybe a year, and say, I really aligned with them. I'm going to reach out because I want to hire them. And that mindset shift has drastically changed how we operate and what we do. We literally were just arguing about it yesterday. A buddy of mine had, Twitter and LinkedIn had said that there's a giant shift happening in our industry from investments to advice, planning, and being there for people. And there was huge arguments about how, well, investments matter more, or where are our fees going to go, and all of that stuff. And ultimately, there's a huge core of us that are pushing that envelope to be like, none of the fees, the investments, none of that matters. The people matter, and they're wanting just sound advice from people they can trust, right?
Sure.
And they've gotten over this thing of like, I can do it myself. They want to learn it, but they don't want to necessarily push all the buttons.
Sure.
Because they've learned the stresses and the concepts behind all of that.
Well, and there's like two camps, I would say, of like a financial coach or someone that's just giving advice, like a flat fee for your time and like whatever you do with that advice, it's up to you. And then there's like the other side where you're selling products and you're trying to take your clients down your product portfolio that you can sell because that's how you monetize your services, which I understand. But I feel like there's got to be somewhere in the middle where you have the client's best outcome at heart, right?
Yep.
You're not just like, well, I sell life insurance, so let's do a whole life policy because that's the only thing, it's like, oh, I've got a family of 6 that need a minivan, but all I sell are Porsches. You guys can all squeeze in this thing. This is a sports car. Like, you got to really solve the problem and be okay with like, oh, you're coming to me and you're a super high net worth individual and you need something bigger than what I can offer. Like, that's okay. I'll refer you to someone else. Or you're, like you said, you're below that threshold of what we can help. Like, here's someone that can help you get to the point where you could work with me in the future, but you're just not there yet. And that's okay because this is like you said, it's not just limited to the 10-mile radius of your office now. You can hit anyone. So you kind of open it up. And I think for me, that's helped in my business too. It's like I have that with video clients. It's like sometimes people come in, they're just not to the scale that they need to be, or they don't have a budget for it or whatever. And that's fine. Like I'm not this scarcity mindset. I'm like, there's plenty of people that do what I do. You can find somebody cheaper. That's fine. But I'm not going to be like trying to drag you to the altar with me. Like if you don't want to do this, that's fine. So I think it's an ebb and flow. What's been kind of your thought on those two camps and where you want to fit in those relationships?
Yeah. And you're right. There is advice and then there's compensation via product. I think all of that should go away because you don't have their best interest at heart. There's no way in hell that is even close because it's a product, right? And that includes, to me, in my opinion, the AUM side too.
Now, assets under management.
Assets under management.
If you're getting quizzed at the end of this one.
If you are just charging a percentage of assets and all you do is investments, you fall in that camp. If you charge under assets and you do financial planning, okay, fine. But if you don't, then really all that matters is whatever the product thing is or whatever their assets are. Does it really matter about the person? It doesn't. And then on the flip side, all the way to the left, if you will, and not politically, just because my left hand's here.
Sure.
And
One
I started
side,
over here.
side A,
the
side
side A,
B.
side B. Man, politics.
That's another podcast.
Right.
We'll get the bourbon out. We'll do another one.
We'll
later.
do a real one. Is the other side of like where we've gone to like financial coaching that don't have any regulations, right? I don't agree 100% there either. It's the thing in the middle. The ones that have the regulations, that have the SEC down our necks all the time, the ones that have to go to schooling and have all the designations and do those things, that are giving advice, able to align people with what their needs are, but not because of a product comp. You paying me is how it should work. It shouldn't be you paying an insurance company or whatever to pay me. Mm-hmm. By the way, those people also get kickoffs too on top of all of that. That's not how it should be. It should be just, I'm the vendor, you pay me and you get me. And that's the way it should be. But we're transitioning that way, right? We went from all of this to way over here to coaches that even a lot of them will drop their licenses to do that because they don't want the regulations, to now we're getting more towards this middle area of us coming out there and saying, we're here, we're regulated, we're going to give that advice. And oh, by the way, instead of you don't fit me and go find someone, we're actually creating this community around all industries to, instead of just being like, go find someone or here's a card. No, let's jump on a call. I think this person's a fit for you. I'll run the meeting, introduce you guys, and then you guys can move off into the sun, regardless of the industry, right? I do that with other advisors right now.
Sure.
Because again, you only can have so many clients. You're at capacity. I'm about 15 clients away from capacity. Guess what happens at capacity? Either you hire more or you're done. Like there's no more. And we are in our industry with money. There is only about 100,000 of us roughly that are CFPs. And I can't count all the other ones because titles are different. But 100,000 of us there's 133 million adults, I believe, in America. Do the math. We can't hold that.
Yep.
I max out at about 40 clients. There's no way the math works. And so there's a lot more opportunities for people to work with the people they want.
Sure. So is your fee structure just a flat fee then? And do you do percentages on top of the AUM, or do you just do a flat fee for your consults and that's how you monetize?
Yep. So I have 3 service fees, if you will. I've got just hourly, obviously. And then we've got one-off projects that go from $1,500 to $12,000 one time. And then you implement it and you do it yourself, right? It's basically DIY and then ongoing with us.
Yep.
And then we have a flat fee from planning from $500 to like $30,000 a month in our family office side. And then right now, until I can get this industry, so our compliance, if we're going to give any advice over investments, right, which covers a lot, you got to charge some type of AUM. So the industry average is like 1%. Mine's down. I think I lowered it this year to 0.7.
Okay.
I'm trying to lower it down to 0.5 next year to get it all the way down to where it's never going to be 0, but I'm trying to get it as low as possible so that way I can still provide some of that investment advice. Otherwise, you can drop that, but then again, I can't say, hey, GameStop stock was great. We should do that one, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at.
Sure.
But that's an industry problem.
Well, it's interesting in that side too, because some people are really good with the self-directed, doing like their own Vanguard Fidelity, like they're just, S&P, whatever, like that. I think that's pretty, like if you're somewhat knowledgeable, you can manage that. But then to your point, if you're doing a certain allocation for high risk that you're willing to kind of roll the dice on, I feel like you really need somebody in your corner to help, because it's like, and especially with like limited partners, general partners, like some of these high net worth people, they don't got time for this shit. They're running $100 million business. They ain't got time to sit here and research what stocks are up or not. There's like, I have a big pot of money. Make me more of it. Like that's all, you know, so that's good. It's great to have general partners in those sense, because then you can allocate funds, or if you're looking for other asset classes outside of just the stock market, whether it's businesses specifically, if you're doing venture capital, or if you're doing rare metals or gold or whatever, like I think that is just interesting to look at, because in your mind, where do you rank the risk of the asset classes that people come to you with, or that like, hey, I want to do venture capital. Like I've got $100 million. Like, do you guys help with that stuff, or where do you rank some of those options to get people a return?
Yeah. So in our industry, we have, they've pooled them for us, right? But I'll explain mine. But there's the traditional investment, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Okay. Then there's alternative investments, which is literally everything else.
Yeah, right.
Which kills me in our industries because it's like, well, first of all, why are they alternative when they're everything else?
Yep.
Stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, that type of portfolio is as risky as everything else on this side. Just depends on your mix up of those stocks and whatnot.
Yep.
And so what we operate, and kind of alluding to what you were talking about with self-directed, by the way, don't use self-directed because self-directed is different than self-management.
Sure.
And we'll talk about that. But when you're doing your own investments and picking those self-investments, I go ahead. Like on the traditional side, that's what you can do. It's very easy, right? It's really not that hard if you just set it and forget it. It's all on the alternative side that it comes into play, right? Like you said, real estate, Forex, commodities, all of your business models, venture capital. And again, my role there is to vet those out for who you are. And that's what it comes down to on those sides. They're not as public, so you don't get all of the really cool information that you can go to Vanguard and Fidelity and all those to look up because it's private. So you have to read through what is called a PPM. You have to read through all these disclosures. Those are the things that I'm hired for and to vet out because those, again, are the ones that not necessarily get you 10%, but they get you 10x, 50x, 100x over time, right? And that is where you can really start to push investments. A normal everyday person, one, doesn't have access to those, and two, would have nowhere near to start, which is why in our industry, alternatives have been deemed that way because you have to have an accreditation in order to get to those.
Yep.
But we're working on changing that so the everyday public can have access because I believe an entire investment lineup should include all of it, no matter how much money you have.
Sure. No, I love that. And for people to get a better understanding, we won't name names or anything, but over your career, what's been like the highest net worth individual, like the dollar amount that they're making per year or their overall net worth? Like what's that number been just for people to understand, like how big of a scale that you guys have worked with or you personally have worked with?
Yeah. So on an individual level, I want to say before taxes because when taxes come into play, the game's different, right?
Oh, sure. Especially if they're in California.
Oh, yeah, right. About a net million a year. Net worth was over, when I was managing, it was over 25 mil. But then businesses have a different set of type of rules. And I think the biggest one I've ever dealt with was a 100-man company that was bringing in about 50 million a year.
Sure.
Gross profit, like actual profit.
Wow, nice.
That was the biggest one. That was insane. Those are the things. They had private jets and it was different ball game in that regard.
Sure. Well, and then you start like you're looking at like tax write-offs. Is I'm going to buy a jet to offset my taxes. Like what a crazy thought to even have. Where obviously someone on the lower tax bracket, that's not even a conversation. No. Like you're not even going to think about that. So
or just having a private jet flight, you're not even thinking about.
Right.
And so I've learned those where I want to fall. I don't like the ultra high net worth ones that already have it, unless they're the younger ones that are inheriting it because their mindset's different. We don't align. I'm here for all the entrepreneurs that are growing into those things, and that's what my services are designed for. Either to take someone who's inherited it, who's younger, or take someone who's building it because it's a different tool and mechanism to use when you're already have $100 million. It's a different game.
Sure. No, I love that. We'll do a quick lightning round here to break it up in the middle. Haven't briefed you on these questions. I'm going to pull some of these out of my butt because I have a couple written down, but I'll have a couple of ones that come up here. 1-word answer. You can do a 5-minute answer. There's no rules. I'm not the referee.
No rules.
I'm not throwing a flag on you. You can do whatever the heck you want. So, of all the asset classes, and for people that are listening, that's just things you can invest in. What's your favorite asset class?
Yeah, yourself.
Expand.
Investing back into yourself is the one asset class that rarely people do. And I mean both in your mental and your physical health, right? So whether that's eating right, which I love food, so I'm going to eat right.
I love food too.
Right? Or getting some counseling and consulting. But a lot of that has to come down to your just happiness. That could be traveling, right? That could be just watching your kids play soccer last night, freezing to death. It could be those things, but your investment back into yourself is ultimately the best investment you can do because it sets everything else up. And I don't mean like what is it everyone goes with in the media now or the marketing tools of, pay yourself first with 10% or something like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an actual investment into yourself will transcend everything else that you do.
Sure. I love that. Whole life or term life insurance, and why?
What about IULs?
Oh, here we go. We're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I used to sell whole life. Like I used to be insurance sales, so I really understand this. I don't believe in whole life. I don't think the flexibility is there. I don't believe the return is good enough for you. Term, everyone should have. It is cheap. It allows you to fill in the gaps, and it allows you to get a lot of death benefit, bang for the buck, if you will, specifically as business owners and whatnot. And one of the ways to do so is you talked about like leaving a legacy. Go get just a shit ton of term life insurance, right, to start with. There it is. You don't have to worry about anything else. You're done. But then you've got the IUL, which is Indexed Universal Life, which is like the hybrid between those two, right? It has the cash value accumulation, if you will, from the whole life. It has the cheaper rates like term, but you can move and adjust it throughout time. So I prefer the term, and then we build into IUL. I don't touch the whole life anymore.
I love that. And to briefly touch in with this, I think I look at insurance in general as a shield, not a spear.
Correct.
So for a lot of people that are really hard on the whole life or the IULs, like one, I'm hard pressed to find someone that's really all about it unless they sell it. That's the one thing, because there's very, very fat commissions on those.
Huge commissions.
The other side of it is also like, again, for me, I'm 29. I think my premium for my term life, my 20 years, like $30 a month.
Right.
My family gets $1 million if I die in the next 20 years.
Yep.
That's insane value. So, and then just again, having a will that says when that money is deposited, here's where it goes.
Yes.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Because like, as you know, there's a lot of other spears or tools you can use to use it as an investment tool. But I personally tend to use that as a shield, and I'll use other stuff for investments. So that's good to hear. Yeah. Favorite splurge item? We're talking about money. Like, if you got to spend it, like, what's your favorite thing? If you're lining up, what are you going to get?
Food, meat, mainly.
Okay.
Like I have like $3,000 worth of meat in my freezer right now.
Oh, sweet.
Like I don't mess around.
You go to like butchers for like, you get like venison, steaks. Like what do
you name it? Right. I have rabbit in there. I've got octopus. I got fish from Hawaii.
Okay.
Like you name it, I have it. That's what I splurge on. It's just one of those things. If I see a deal, or luckily, again, another pandemic thing is butchers have made a comeback, but also like global butchers have made a comeback where you can order meat and get it there from all different walks of life, from all different sources. And so meat.
Are you on the Omaha Steaks life? Are you subscribed?
No, I'm not. Okay. I grew up there.
Well, yeah, right? You're like taste of home, man.
Honestly, they're decent steaks, but they're not high quality steaks.
Sure.
So I've made enough money in my life that when I splurge, I can splurge for, the prime cuts. I don't have to do choice cuts. I can go do these other things. And that's what I splurge on.
Sure. Death row meal, if you're a foodie, what's you're going to die tomorrow. Not knock on wood, you're not, but you're getting the electric chair tomorrow. You had a bad business practice. Something went south.
Something happened.
Dude, it was, bad situation. Now you're on death row. What's your death row meal?
So the fact about being a foodie that sucks is I love all food. So picking one would be tough, and it'd be definitely like what season I'm in. But if it was today, right? Whatever day it is, it's almost April. I would probably have to go with a barbecue platter.
Okay.
Yeah, full-on barbecue platter.
Brisket, ribs.
Brisket, only the fatty side. Beef ribs, throw in the little spare ribs in there as well.
Yep.
Some really good cornbread, right? Some nice coleslaw, and at least one type of sausage, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you been to What You Smokin' in Luther?
I have not.
You've not?
It's on my
God.
list.
It's so good, dude. So I live in Polk City, and like on the way to Boone, I have a friend that lives in Boone. There's just a random dive place called What You Smokin'. Amazing pulled pork. They got like jalapeno cornbread.
I can get behind that.
The fixin'. It's good. Really good stuff. Now everyone's really hungry listening to this.
Me too.
Dream car. Any car in the world could go in your garage. What would you have?
I've had both of my dream cars. I currently drive one of mine.
Nice.
And that is a Silverado.
Okay.
And my other one was a Chrysler 300, and I had that before I had my truck. So I've had mine. Now, a dream car that I want to actually build is a 67 Chevelle SS.
Okay.
But
is that a tie to like childhood stuff, or do you just like the look?
I just love the look, and there is something there, but I don't recall it. I just know it, if that makes any sense.
Sure. No, I love that. Okay. You're out of the hot seat. Can to be continued later. I do feel like there's going to be a follow-up episode where we have a couple drinks and talk the fun stuff. To tie it all back to, I wanted to talk about kind of the process of getting your marketing out. Because you mentioned this is like a new thing that you're doing. I've been in the industry for 9 years doing what I do, and I've talked to plenty of people in the finance space that have told me, Ryan, we can't do content marketing. We can't go online and compliance, and it's just because they're over 50 and they don't want to be on camera, which I get.
100%.
What's been your experience going to the national marketplace and just putting out content? What's been that experience like for you to kind of put yourself out there?
It's at first, like I can talk in front of people, have been able to. That's not like a issue for me, but it's just always been like trained to us because of compliance that you can't say these things. You can't put yourself out there. And I think that's caused, even me to like not want to do it. But then when you start doing it, it's just like this. Like it's just fun. Like we'll talk for like 2 hours and cut it up 100 different ways and it's out there. And ultimately that's what I figured out. And then you start to get feedback. And it's not always like people commenting, but it's those direct messages. It's the emails. It's when you're at conferences, people going, I love your content. It has changed the way I think about things. Then you're like, well, shit, I can't stop. Like I'm helping people. And now I just can't stop doing it. And now I just want to do more and more and more and more and more until, I die basically, because I feel like real conversations like this with real information from real people changes lives. The shit we see in commercials and all the things from the institutions, that doesn't do anything.
Sure. When you see a branded commercial from Fidelity and it's like these perfect looking models and a highly curated, it's like that doesn't connect with me. And if I'm looking for financial advice, I don't want the fake runaround. I need to know this is going to work in real life or like from a trusted person.
Right.
It's like it's the opposite of almost what needs to happen.
Correct.
Because in your content experience, what's been your personal favorite thing to do? Has it been like speaking, podcasts? Like are you doing YouTube by chance or okay?
You name it, except for Reddit because I got kicked off.
Okay.
It's been podcasting, right? From all perspectives. I technically have 2 podcasts. Goon Squad is our other one, which is a sports show that has been on a 1-year delay because of my guests or my hosts, my co-hosts. But I love it because my personality can come out. It's on video. It's there in audio. You can cut it up and then put it into articles and blogs, and it can just do so much, and it's so powerful. But it's also there for when people want to listen to it, right? Some things with our reels and all that, it's all algorithm based, and we don't have to talk about algos because I hate those. But it's like the podcast is there. If they want to go back to it, they can listen to it. If they want to listen to it 100 times, they can. It's not something that they have to catch. You have to have a reel that you just catch that goes crazy. It's there for them always, and so it's been podcasting that's been the ultimate for me.
I love that. I know, especially for me, like when I think of content marketing, it's a huge piece of my personal brand and how I've grown my business. I always say a third of my clients come from content marketing, a third from organic Google search, and then a third from referrals and repeat clients. And have that mix is important because then you can diversify. But also, I have so much knowledge I want to share with the world. If I only do it one-on-one with my clients, I'm just cutting my own legs off. There's so much more you could do to share. But also like the searchability is huge because like I love YouTube because I have like 17,000-ish subscribers and I get like 35,000 to 45,000 views a month on my channel still. So there's like almost 50,000 people a month that like find my stuff looking for it. The podcast is searchable. Like it increases your visibility. From your podcast and things you've done, what have been opportunities that have been presented to you that you've been able to go and speak, or clients that you would have never caught before? Because I think the reason I'm hitting on this is because I think people are terrified to put themselves out there, but the collateral benefits of being a thought leader in your space are 10x, 100x more than the fear of just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it's done 3 key things for me. 1, speaking engagements, people wanting you to come speak, right? It's going to put you out there. And book offers and stuff like that. That's going to come from it. 2, the long-term effects of when people are ready, you're there. And that, I've had people come, I've been watching you and following you for 2 years before they come and want to be clients. 2 years, right? We don't ever know the real life cycle of someone's buying opportunity, but like 2 years is a long time. And I would not have had that if we didn't have our podcast and all that stuff out there. Just no way it would have been out there. And then the third side of it is the ability to have other advisors, planners, everyone in the industry reach out and ask for help and opinions and do those things. And those are all needle movers in 3 different ways, right? You're changing public and society things from a massive perspective, from a conference perspective, as well as just our own industry. You've got clients and stuff that can follow you and learn who you are because it's out there, everything. And then the third is like one-on-one helping my industry specifically, but there's been other industries that have reached out and said, hey, how are you doing that? Like, how are you running that? How can I do that? To your question of, I'm petrified to do it. How do I start? And I'm just like, come on my podcast. Let's go. I'll give you as a guest and we'll go.
Sure.
It's not hard. It's relatively fun overall. Now I'm biased because I can do it easily, and others can't, but it really is when you have a good host, you're just sitting there communicating. You don't see lights, you don't see cameras or mic unless you hit it. Right?
Boop, boop, boop.
Right. It's just fun.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting to hear because everyone in their own industry is becoming their own content creator, their own marketing team, all that stuff. What's been kind of your pivot now with doing Black Mammoth, all the stuff that you're doing to position yourself as like a media company? Like you do your service, but also like there has to be a part of this that is producing content and putting things out. That's not what you do in your business. You guys manage money and help people make financial decisions. Right. What's like that been for you to kind of think of yourself as like a marketing company to try to put out your own stuff?
I don't know if I'm fully there yet, right? Like I know and I operate that way, but I don't know if I've internalized it to that yet, right? For me, it's like I'm just doing it to help people and my clients. Like that's just the repeat thing. But when you back up and look at it from that perspective, and you look at all the assets that have been put out there, and not assets for investments this time, but assets in terms of content, it's kind of overwhelming of like all of the stuff. And then you start to think about, it's like a media company. What can we do with this thing? And for me, I have stopped there with that thinking because usually the next step is monetizing it. And the monetization I want from it is either through my business, through my podcast, or through everyone else's business, right? I don't want to have guests come on and be paid. I don't want ads. I don't want any of that because I don't want the money to be because of the content. I want the content to be out there to help other people make decisions to go to the correct businesses.
Sure.
So that's kind of where it stopped for me from that perspective.
That was going to be my follow-up question was like, have you considered doing online programs, masterminds, small group coaching to help expand it and also open a new revenue stream? Or are you just purely out there to try to have a net out there to catch fish, so to speak? Or are you looking to potentially monetize on the back end?
No, I've thought about it. Literally, my marketing team, when I was speaking, said you should do it because you have a voice and people really would follow you. I don't know if I have the energy for that. Coaching from that perspective takes a lot of energy. And I believe that would take me out of the game of helping my clients because I do coach them, right? So I already get that part. I don't know if I have the capacity to do seminars and courses and everything to, coach from a higher level of things. I don't know if I have that yet. Now my marketing team keeps pushing me, right? Mm-hmm. We keep talking about it, but I don't see that yet. I would rather either expand on the podcast, maybe write a book or something next. That's a little more passive in that retrospect before I dive into that.
Sure. Well, if you go down the course route, again, last week I was talking with a bunch of people that are doing that. I've built 7 courses, so I have 3 of my own and then 4 for clients that I've made. And it's always interesting, like looking at that because having a pay gated area, people like when they pay attention, which is always nice. Mm-hmm. Like you can have all the free stuff on YouTube, which a lot of my paid course content is on YouTube. It's a freaking search to find it all. But people just like that. They're like, oh, I'm wanting to understand investing. Here's the step by step to get to the end where I could do whatever. And like it just naturally leads to you doing it. Because I know for me, once I start building my team out and I have time to do it, I know I'm planning to do another program for marketing for business owners because I get so many DMs daily of like, hey, how do you do this? And I'm just tired of answering the questions. So I'm like, then I can just be like, go watch these videos and do it and like just make it like not even super expensive. Just like, here's the solution. I can do it one time, edit it. Here's the solution answer because I'm just tired of answering the same question. So I think that's a piece of it too is like, depending on how you want to help people, I think that helps. But also if you know your mediums, like I love to write, so then make a book, do blogs. For me, I love video, clearly. That's like my service offering. Anything that's not video, I tend not to do because it's what I do. Like, why would I force myself to write when I'm a video guy? Like I'll do video, So I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah, and I think at some point you're right. right? I probably would end up doing that if I don't see, I knew I was going to do it. I knew it. I called it out earlier. If I don't see it being done in my industry and I can't just like push people to someone I trust to do it, then yeah, I probably would, because that's just how I operate. But I believe that there's some really badasses out there that are creating it. Actually, I know there is a couple of them that are my colleagues that we already push stuff to. So I'll probably just push it that way and let them feast on that, just because it's a lot of work. But ultimately, I don't know. It doesn't fit me yet.
Sure. No, I love it. Tying the whole conversation together, I think we've talked about so many great topics. It's been a great conversation. Speaking more specifically to this audience, it's a lot of like 20 to 30-year-old business owners in Iowa. That's kind of the audience that tends to listen to this show. For those types of people, what would be your biggest advice when they're looking at their investments and trying to plan for the future? What are some things they should be thinking about, or things they should have on their radar when they're looking at how to build wealth for themselves?
Yeah. Get outside of Iowa in terms of your thinking. Get outside of the Midwest in terms of your thinking. Okay. There's not a lot of great offerings from the mass perspective here in the Midwest, let alone Iowa itself, right? Even as little as a savings account, high yield savings account, we don't really have much of that in Iowa. You've got to go bigger and get 5.1%, right? Are you getting that at your local bank? No, not unless it's in the CD, right? So you need to expand your brain and what things are out there, right? Where to do that resource-wise, obviously you can come to me, but go out there and just search for terms and look for VCs and do those things to expand your brain when it comes to different types of investments that are out there, because there's a ton out there that are less risk than some other things, right? And I know in the Midwest specifically, we love to, when it comes tax season, because that's what we're in right now, is we would rather go buy equipment and do that as a deduction, as opposed to, why don't you go invest in something, get a very similar deduction, but the upside is, whatever X greater than if I bought this truck or whatever. So sure. My thing would be start to expand your brain outside of our Midwest values and start to learn the other things. You don't have to do what they do, but if you start to learn those, I think it'll open opportunities, not just from an investment perspective, but from your own business mindset perspective, because this is a very big world and there's a lot of opportunities out there to make money and to grow the way you want to.
I love it. Tying it all together as well, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about your company and follow you guys on your podcast and all the other places you're on online?
Absolutely. BlackMammoth.com. And Black Mammoth has socials everywhere as well. NoBSWealthPodcast.com. Again, all the socials everywhere except for Reddit. Damn Reddit.
Got you taken down.
And then obviously Stoy Hall. I'm at Stoy Hall at everything. You can come at me personally as well. My only ask, and this is how I end all of these, is comment. Come ask questions. I know you're curious and you want to know. That's what I'm here for. That's what my colleagues are here for. Just ask questions and learn. And then ultimately you can make the decision if you want to hire us or whatever your situation is to improve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Thanks for coming in and your time. If you guys have made it this far on the show, you know what to do. Make sure to give this video a big like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, and make sure to check out all of Stoy's stuff in the description box below. My name is Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snaadt Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snaadmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.